Ask HG, Episode 6, Part 8. Hello, I'm HG Tudor, and welcome back to Ask HG. I'm wading through the many questions that have been posed to me, taking as many as I possibly can for the purposes of enabling you to understand more about me, my kind, and narcissism. Do feel free to pose your own questions. It would be helpful to me if you pose them in the last part of episode 6, so they're all in one place, but I may well mosey across to the sections when I undertake episode 7. I note that many of you have already asked questions in the comments section of the constituent parts. Thank you for doing so. Keep them coming. Now, let us embrace more of the questions. Tom Muggeridge, once again, getting his money's worth. I have seen interviews with greater narcissists where, when they are insulted, issued challenge fuel, they come up with the best and most amazing comebacks. Are these comebacks stored and then used, or does the narcissist just come up with them on the spot? It's a combination of the two, Tom. Some are stored in the way that you might have a comedian who has stock comebacks in certain situations and dealing with heckling. But with a greater narcissist, because of the level of intelligence, speed of thought, and of course the way the narcissism has evolved to ensure that there is the nullification of threat to control in the instant, often the put-down comeback zinger is created on the spot. So a proportion are stored up, but most of them are in the moment created. I0 again. I'm really interested in cults. The place in Scotland outside Aberdeen? How specific? I already watched your Keith Raniere video, thank you, and a lot of your Knowledge Vault content, thank you. And the narc-on-narc stuff, great stuff. I assume Mr. Raniere is a greater narcissist because he seems to be consciously aware of his manipulations. There's a wide variety of them and has a very dark side and a very charismatic facade. How does such a cult evolve like in the early days? Did he attract many empaths and some lower mid-range narcissists and basically gives every narcissist his own empath sheep to play with? Well, of course, what he does is he draws empaths towards him, and he may well appoint one of those individuals as a lieutenant to shepherd the other empathic sheep, if you look at it that way. But more usually, it would be the case that a mid-range narcissist would be recruited for that purpose, that would share the same values in effect, would also have the rewards of being placed as a lieutenant, but would truly believe in what the cult stands for, because it has to incorporate true believers, you see. And the true believers form the core, and invariably they are the narcissists. And the empathic victims become brainwashed through manipulation and a combination of their own emotional thinking. But they are capable, if you will, of being deprogrammed should they escape. They don't become true believers, they are transient believers, whereby a combination of the manipulation and the emotional thinking causes them to buy into what the cult stands for, but certain circumstances can cause that to erode. That doesn't happen when it comes to the true believers. Moving on. Dawn Alea. HG, I have one other question if you don't mind. No, I don't mind. That's why I'm doing this. I recently learned that being an empath is something which is developed the same as narcissism, by predisposition but mostly childhood abuse. No, empaths aren't necessarily created from childhood abuse. There are some empaths who aren't originated in that way. For years I thought my empathic traits were a gift from God, but now I see it's a remnant of the abuse I endured. Is this true that this is how an empath is created, and can you elaborate on the creation of an empath? The empath comes from a genetic predisposition towards that, combined with a particular empathic environment. So you can have some empaths that are created in an environment which is loving, nurturing, caring, and they have that genetic predisposition. Other empaths are forged in the fire of a genetic predisposition towards empathy, but combined with a lack of control environment, similar to that in which the narcissist is created, but because the genetic predisposition isn't there, it creates an empath instead. Those are the circumstances, but abuse doesn't always have to be present. Know it. HG, I saw a post today about narcissists ending socially isolated because they're only interested in other people for their attention. Well, we're only interested in other people for the prime aims. From the comment section of all videos, I've gathered that many liberated empathy end up isolated. I'd be interested in hearing your thoughts on the subject of isolation further. Well, in terms of narcissists ending up socially isolated, it can happen with the lower echelon type, particularly as they get older, because friends have had enough of their behaviour, family members have had enough of their behaviour, and so they distance themselves. And they may lack the energy, as they have advanced years, to replace those people in their fuel matrices. They may have illness or infirmity which prevents them connecting with people in a meaningful way to draw them in, and thus they end up being isolated. In other instances, of course, where there's massive exposure that takes place, a narcissist can effectively be sent to Coventry by those around them, but that is less likely to happen. JF, HG, thank you for your knowledge and your humour. You are welcome. Could you please comment on whether there is any significance to having considerably stronger empathy towards dogs than people? Yes, it's likely that you're a dog yourself, that you enjoy chasing rubber things and eat strange snacks. Moving on. Felly G. Hi HG, I'm binging your vids. So helpful. What can I say to a dear empath friend whose husband is a narc to help her see he's controlling and manipulating her to the extreme and damaging her mental health? Well, don't go in using the N-word. It'll only confuse her. It's not to say that she's stupid. But starting talking about narcissism and everything associated with that is a lot for a person to take in. Best thing you can do is highlight the behaviours. Ask how she is. Ask how things are at home. If she closes down and doesn't want to talk, leave it, and you'll have to try on another occasion. If she offers you a chink and starts to just talk about how she's a little bit upset or things have gone wrong, listen. Encourage her to talk. Don't keep telling her what's going on. People don't like to be told how to think. And what you need to do is let her offer up the information to you, and once she's done so, you can offer your view. Explain that's all very concerning, and I think there's a deep-seated problem there. And then start to talk about how the behaviours are problematic. Find out, have they been going on for a long time? If they have, then you can suggest that because these behaviours are systemic and have occurred over a long period of time, that this may well be a deep-seated behaviour that's pathological in nature, and build up to demonstrating to this person that it is narcissism. You have to take it slowly and let them find their own way there, and then you can introduce them to my work. Laura Cox. Hello HG, straight to business. With reference to the imitation game, which emotion do you find most difficult to portray accurately and why? Sadness. It doesn't come naturally to me, it's beneath me, and I think it's pathetic. Secondly, given that everyone in your life is controlled directly or indirectly, can you recall a time where you have behaved spontaneously? There will be instances where I have acted through instinct. Yes. Off the top of my head, I don't recall the instance, though. DA. I have a question, please. I realised that I had dated and even married narcs in the past. The latest relationship was one that made me understand what I was dealing with for the very first time, and it was because of the insults, craziness, violence, silent treatments, etc. That narcissistic fury. My question is, do all narcissists have rage tantrums at some point? No. Lesser narcissists have them the most. Mid-range narcissists tend to be more cold fury, but you can sometimes see rage there, but it's not as often. Greaters can exhibit heated, ignited fury, but are far better at controlling it, so you may never actually see it. Bees in the trap. Thank you for your selfless service. Well, thank you, but it's not selfless. I'm doing it for the prime aims. I wandered over from Crystalline Karazin's channel. No idea who that is. How do narcissists feel about their intimate partner primary source masturbating, since it can increase their self-confidence? Well, if we've encouraged it, then it's a response to what we've instructed them to do, which shows that they're under control, and it is a provision of fuel. If you're engaging in that in a situation where you're meant to be getting it on with us, it will amount to wounding, because you're basically demonstrating more interested in yourself than us. If we find you lurking in the bathroom, rubbing the nubbin, then in such circumstances, again, that is wounding, and the narcissist is challenged. Is it common for certain empathic traits to change with age? No, there will be slight alterations, but there's no wholesale change. Can depression, anxiety, and other mood disorders affect emotional thinking? It's the other way around. Emotional thinking harnesses those mood disorders, etc., to use them against the empathic victim. If someone isn't entangled by a narcissist, what are some ways to reduce emotional thinking? Well, it depends. Are you talking about the emotional thinking that's linked to narcissism? If so, use the material in the knowledge vault. If it's emotional thinking that's not linked to narcissism, because that exists also, I'd need to know the context to advise more often. What has been your most successful Hoover? Well, I had a Dyson that was pretty good. Is that what you're asking me? How can someone to increase their narcissistic traits to their own benefit after they've identified them? You have to understand that they are used in conjunction with your empathic traits, and you don't actually increase the traits, they're fixed. You might mean do you increase the use of them, in which case that's where you apply logic. What narcissistic traits are the most beneficial to empathic people? Well, all of them can be beneficial in some way, so long as they're held within their empathy. Does acquiring large amounts of fuel feel similar to an orgasm in any way? There are similarities, but it's linked more towards powerful sensation than pleasure. Do you think that I'll start again and put my teeth in. Do you think that ancient depictions of man-eating monsters, incubi, succubi, vampires, werewolves, sirens are allegories for narcissists? I do. Good observation. How does an empathic individual stop fighting against their nature? You don't. That's what you are. You must embrace it. But what you can do is learn to apply logic by reducing your emotional thinking, which is at the heart of the work that I explain. Moving on. Amanda Lubner asks, Hi HG, thank you for all your posts. I'm learning so much. Quick question. Is it possible for someone with super empath element in them to go supernova after one or more cliff edges and recovery from them? Yes. Emma Sweetland. Hi HG, thank you for your work. It helped me avoid a determined Hoover, I think. Question. How do some narcissists maintain long and seemingly happy marriages? Well, invariably, it's a combination of a victim that is so bound to the narcissist that they don't try to escape, no matter how bad it gets. Invariably, there are considerable benefits to them. Status, money, prestige. It might be, of course, that the narcissist devaluing behaviour is limited to a smaller range of actions, and much of the devaluing behaviour goes elsewhere, for instance smearing that they don't hear about, having affairs that they're unaware of. And in such circumstances, they're not happy marriages at all, they just appear on the outside to be that way, and it's maintained quite simply because the victim doesn't escape and the disengagement trigger doesn't occur, and it's all essentially down to the fact that the narcissist has been able to bind that victim so closely, and their emotional thinking is such that they don't offend through escape or the disengagement trigger, and the narcissist is particularly skilled at handling, if you will, that particular empathic individual to such an extent that they don't break down and that they don't try and escape. So it's a mixture of the two. Jane, love your Q&A. Thank you. Question. I didn't get to the DV stage with my narcissist before I found out what he was. I made a plan to get him out. He went. I've got no contact. He seems like a victim and somatic. Do they cross over? Not very bright, no money and a drunk. Will my escape be easier, or should I not underestimate his stupidity? No, you should not underestimate it, because that stupidity can come at you in a rather rudimentary and sledgehammer-like fashion. Don't underestimate the narcissism. The narcissism is hugely effective at the assertion of control. In some instances, that's through a very subtle emotional bruising that you will receive. In others, it is punching your face in. What you need to do is ensure that you focus on you and your defences. Joanne McAvoy, here are my questions for episode 6. In your opinion, HG, what's the best strategy towards recovery once the victim has been maintaining no contact for many months? Stay off social media and dating sites? Yes. Plus continue to access your work for as long as necessary? Yes. Is there anything else that the victim should be doing? You need to ensure that you stay away from all known narcissists so that you're not topping up your emotional thinking. And as mentioned, you stay away from dating sites so that you're not going to wander into hunting grounds and risk being ensnared by another narcissist. You need to focus on getting your emotional thinking down, so it's staying away from the narcissist, other known narcissists, and ensuring that you don't go into places where you might get caught by another one. 7Baby3, Dear HG, I discovered your channel open recently, and I'm admiring and studying all the information provided as well as your person. You're probably unique, and you're the only person who gave me clear answers on the experience I had with the victim. Acting like a tormented borderline, but definitely an MMR type B. My question is it also proper of the middle range to have aims of grandiosity and power to win over siblings, the control of properties, for example, with the conviction that they're spiritually and morally superior to others? Yes, that can happen. GP, these are my favourite. I love listening to you speak candidly. You're welcome. Hugs and Chris. Hi HG, my ex is addicted to alcohol, drugs, sex, porn, food, and his latest additions are tarot card readings and photos of latex-wearing BDSM models. Well, the weekends aren't dull around your house, are they? My question is, what fuel does he get from these addictions? Well, it depends. Alcohol and drugs are fuel substitutes. Listen to Cheers, the alcohol and the Narcissist and alcohol. Sex provides fuel, the oohing and the ahhing and ooh, give it to me, big boy. All of that is fuel. Porn, read Sex and the Narcissist. I explain more about that. Food is used to triangulate, and as are tarot card readings and photos of latex-wearing BDSM models. Invariably, those aspects are used to triangulate you in a malign fashion so that your reaction signals that you're under control and that you provide fuel. The tarot card readings in themselves, if they're not directed towards him, don't give fuel of themselves. Sometimes there'll be thought fuel associated where he looks at these things and contemplates how they might impact upon him, but remember, thought fuel is short-lived, it's ephemeral in nature and particularly weak. Joe's son. Thank you, HG. I've had an experience with a mid-range narcissist that was a real case study. He sulked, silent treatment, triangulated, criticised and didn't tolerate other opinions. I followed GoSo before I even knew about it. Listening to you now helps put it all together. Good. It's the emotional thinking that gets me, even though there's nothing attractive about him to me anymore. He definitely thought he was a good guy, but admitted he had no trouble walking away from any of his exes. He's gone through a 12-year divorce with a woman he said he never loved. Well, you don't actually ask me a question, but if you're hinting the emotional thinking is still causing a problem, get yourself to the Knowledge Vault and obtain the final battle. How to stop thinking about the narcissist, how to tackle emotional thinking, and the mirror technique, how to crush emotional thinking. Plus some big black boots. Thank you, HG, for answering my questions and making me laugh. That's all right. Did you laugh until you weed? Come on, tell me. I need to know. Desert Dweller. But you're all hot and sweaty, aren't you? Hello, and thank you, HG. I had a friend who knew he was a psychopath. He often talked about the creature within as well, as many other issues of being one. Since all psychopaths are narcissists, but only greaters have awareness, would this awareness classify him as a greater narcissist, or is the awareness due to psychopathy? In the circumstances, it's difficult for me to answer because I would need more information. Given that he's identified as a psychopath, it may well be the case that he is one and talks about it because he doesn't need control in the way that a narcissist would do so. So I'd actually need more information about the circumstances to ascertain, are you dealing with someone who's a pure psychopath or was he a narcissist also, to look into the control aspect of this. I'd invite you to arrange a consultation with me and I'd be pleased to go into detail for this further. Monica Cordelia, HG, I appreciate that you've upped your game with this new channel. Thank you. Tom Muggeridge, here he is again. Can emotional thinking influence an empath to be drawn to and obsessed with narcissists in the public eye, such as narcissist celebrities, in the same way as they are with narcissists they know privately? Yes. Two things at work there. Remember, the addiction is not just to a narcissist, it is to all narcissists, and therefore the emotional thinking may seize on the empathic victim's like of the particular celebrity in order to feed the addiction and cause them to think that they're just obsessing over them in terms of their music's brilliant or love reading their books, etc. Well, that takes us to the end of part 8. Will there be a part 9? Only one way to find out. I'm H.G. Tudor. Thank you for listening.